Hi, welcome back to your AP World History modules for your prerequisite work. Remember, this is an essay writing module for the DBQ, and within this lesson are important notes that you need to write down. Hopefully you found a new notebook where you can keep the notes from each of these modules. There are short quizzes after each module, and the notes that you write down will come in handy when you take that quiz. And of course, you can work with any of the other students that are enrolled in AP World History to work on those quizzes together. You guys are more than welcome to do that. And a good rule to remember, if the teacher's writing it down or has written it down on the board or displays it in a presentation or is verbally describing something, then you should write it down as well. And I suggest that your notebook is clean and fresh and used only for AP World History. So as you go through each of these modules, hopefully you've got one notebook where you can keep all of these essay notes together. It'll help you stay organized. Again, make sure you write the title of the lesson, the slide title. This will help you with organization. And again, we go through this will be like an overview of the contextualization point for the AP World History DBQ essay. And this is a very important point. It's the first one that you'll earn in your essay. So let's talk about contextualization. Contextualization situates the argument by explaining a broader historical event, development, or process that is immediately relevant to the prompt. What's going on around the world at this point in time? How do we get to this point, right, that's relevant to the prompt? How does it fit into world history? How is it a part of something greater? That's the context. This includes time, place, and most importantly, the situation of the prompt. And these events and processes are directly, that led directly to the issue within the prompt. You must explain that connection to the prompt. You can't just randomly mention a few events or a few developments going on at the time that you're given in your prompt and assume that your reader is going to make a connection. You actually have to explain what's the connection to the situation you've described in your context and how is that related to the prompt. And of course, you want to give explanations of world historical events that connect to the question, to the global process. The context is presented at the beginning of the essay. It's the very, very first thing that you do. It's usually multiple sentences, because what you want to do is give the reader a good solid setting. So you're looking at least 3 or 4 sentences of describing the time and the place, and like I said, most importantly, the situation. So let's revisit the example that we've looked at. Using the following documents in your knowledge of world history, analyze the attitudes by groups and individuals towards those they consider to be outsiders or others from the 9th century BCE to the 13th century CE. So your time is from the 9th century BCE, before Common Era, to the 13th century CE, or Common Era. Okay, that's your time. Your location, well, that depends on the locations that are used in your documents. And of course, the situation here is how groups or individuals view outsiders or foreigners. That's the situation. It's very important when you're developing contextualization to brainstorm context ideas and write them down. If you could come up with a list of key terms, and those terms would be events or processes, developments, anything like that to help get you going on how to explain the context, can be very helpful. For example, rulers have monuments built in their honor. Remember, and this has to do with our example from the prompt that we're working with here. Rulers have monuments built in their honor. Rulers have built walls and fortified cities to keep out invaders. Rulers required tribute, payment, worship. Some of our first civilizations: ancient Egypt, ancient China. Second civilizations, that would be ancient Rome, ancient Greece, Han China, and then the third world civilizations, and that gets into the latter part of our time frame that we're talking about here. This would typically be, by the time you get to the third civilizations, which would be probably around 500 or 600 CE and onward, really the center of the global civilization transitions from Rome and Europe to Asia. Religious ideologies and philosophies have influenced behavior and how societies view foreigners. War and conquest have influenced behavior and how societies view foreigners. And technological exchange can encourage interaction among groups. So these are just some ideas of context for this particular prompt. Of course, I've left some things out because I want you to develop some on your own, but these are all great ways to describe the situation. Keep in mind, agriculture, just like the concept of civilization, really became a global phenomenon, especially the beginning of the time period that we're working with here, the 9th century BCE. As humans looked to new methods of survival, agriculture developed. After 3500 BCE, new civilizations emerged independently in several locations globally because of agriculture. Like I mentioned earlier, the first civilizations, that's ancient Egypt along the Nile River, Mesopotamia, and the Fertile Crescent, and even the Indus River Valley civilizations and the Chinese River Valley civilizations that became dynasties. And even some remote locations in the Western Hemisphere, like Mesoamerica, all became very important civilizations, and they all matured as they gradually absorbed or displaced smaller communities, and those smaller communities were once outsiders. So it's very important to take a look at some of these different situations when you're developing the context for this particular DBQ. And that concludes your contextualization lesson. Happy quizzing, and I will see you for your thesis lesson.